Welcome once again to Lexicon Tutorials. This is my fourth Swedish lesson here. So if you haven't seen the other Swedish lessons yet, you can do that before you watching this. And I have received a request about making a video where I explain how to greet people and how to ask basic information about them. So I thought that might be a good idea. And since we are going to learn how to ask questions, we are going to focus a lot on the question words to start with. Here is a beautiful Swedish landscape. You can see a river here. And let's say two people are meeting each other here and want to know something about each other. And, then they need to use some question words. Perhaps you can actually guess some of these question words, what they mean. At least the first one here. Because it starts with an H, just like a question word does in English, how. So hur is how. And then we have vad, and that is the Swedish word for what. Then we have var. That is the Swedish word for where. You can see there's an R in the end of, not in the end, but there is an R in where and there is an R in var. And you can see all these words that starts with WH in English, they start with V in Swedish. So, because the languages have the same sort of root and history far back. Varifrån, that is also a kind of where, but it's from where, sorry. And then we have vilka, and that is which. But in Swedish we have three whiches, or at least we have three words for the word which. Because it's like for the different nouns, the neuter, that is vilket, and the common, that is vilka. That's vilken, and then plural, that's vilka. And here I used the plural, and that will perhaps make sense later on why I did that. And then we have the word varför, hur, vad, var, varifrån, vilka, varför. So that could be good to know. And how do you use these words in a sentence? You will perhaps wonder. And here comes the sentences. And you use them in almost the same way as in English. You have first the question word, then you have the verb, and then last you have the subject. So the first question, how are you? You could perhaps guess that. You remember the pronoun du, the you in singular in Swedish. And so, hur mår du? How are you? You translate it like word for word. But the word mår is not like a one-to-one translation of are. Vad heter du? And that is what is your name. But we have a verb that is like describing the act of having a name or being called something. So vad heter du? It's the same thing. The question word, the verb, and the subject. And then we have var bor du? And here it starts to become different from English, the structure and the syntax. Because in English you of course say, where do you live? And in Swedish you say, where live you? So if you just translate where, it becomes var, live, bor, du, you, du. And bor is not like living in general, it's more like reside, or I mean living in a specific place. So you only use it in that context, like where do you live, var bor du? And then we have varifrån, from where, and then we have kommer du. So, and here again we don't say like where do you come from. We say because we don't use the help verb, so it becomes varifrån kommer du. You can also say var kommer du ifrån. So I guess från, from, it's something similar that has a historical background, I guess. And then we have vilka, the plural which. And then, I don't know if this is difficult to read perhaps, but språk, that is languages, kan, du, you. So what languages do you speak? What languages can you? I mean, that wouldn't sound very good in English, but it sounds good in Swedish. And then we have varför. And here we have a very common question, I think, if you are learning Swedish. Then many Swedes will ask this. Varför lär du dig svenska? There is no question mark here, and that's just sort of a space issue, because, I mean, it isn't space for that. It should have been one. But, yes, so varför, why, lär, learn, du, you, dig, yourself, svenska, Swedish. Varför lär du dig svenska? Because many Swedes are very sort of puzzled about foreigner learning the language, because they think, why on earth would anyone learn this dull and boring and I don't know, language? And I mean, it's a complete waste of time. I mean, only knowing that the language exists is a waste of time. I don't know if all Swedes think like that, but many Swedes do. Of course not all, because I'm a Swede, I don't think like that. But, well, I'm exaggerating to prove a point, but many Swedes are very negative about Swedish. But many Swedes are also very happy if you actually try to learn Swedish, because, I don't know, it's a little nice when people try to learn your language, I guess. So, they will be like surprised but happy when they ask this. Varför lär du dig svenska? So here we have the questions. Hur mår du? Vad heter du? Var bor du? Varifrån kommer du? Vilka språk kan du? Varför lär du dig svenska? And of course we need someone to answer these questions. So I have more than one possible answer, actually. So let's see. Not for the first question. Is this the right direction? Yes, it's the right direction. I only wrote bra because, I mean, that's good. It has nothing to do with any kind of clothing and underwear or something. You will, I think, when learning Swedish, you'll reprogram your brain so you won't find that funny after a while. And then, vad heter du? Well, perhaps Emma, Joshua, Marie, Benjamin, Sara, Mikael, Emily. I was just searching on Google, like, which are the most common first names in the world. I think it's a little weird, though, that all these names are like Western sounding. I mean, since there are so many Asian people, it would be more probable an Asian name, but anyway, quite conveniently, most of these names are quite common in Sweden. But let's say Benjamin is the answer. So this Benjamin feels good or at least replies bra. And where does he live? Is the next question. And here he actually starts to reply in complete sentences. I don't know why I didn't made a complete sentence here. I could have done that, but I didn't for some reason. I don't know what I was thinking about. But here he can reply, jag bor i Stockholm. That is the capital, as you know. And he can reply, jag bor i Göteborg. That is the second largest town or city. And perhaps he lives in Malmö. Jag bor i Malmö. But now he lives in Gothenburg. And then the next question is, varifrån kommer du? And he can reply, från Frankrike, from France. Från USA, from the USA or the US. Från USA, från Egypten, from Egypt. Or från Kina. Or perhaps... No, sorry, Gothenburg. Okay. Sorry. From China, yes. But now he comes from France. So. And then this person, of course, wants to ask, or perhaps wants to ask, what languages do you speak? Let's imagine this Benjamin from France is a hyper polyglot, and he replies, engelska, kinesiska, spanska, arabiska, hindi, tyska och lite svenska. Engelska, that is of course English. Kinesiska, that's Chinese. Spanska, Spanish, quite easy. Arabiska, Arabic. Hindi, Hindi. Tyska, that's a little tricky, that's German. And och lite svenska. And a little Swedish. Some Swedish. Varför lär du dig svenska? And then he can reply like för att det är kul. Because it's fun. I think this is a legit reason. Because, you know, we only live on this planet for a couple of decades. And we have to enjoy ourselves by learning new languages. By watching lexicon tutorials. So, yes, if I read through this conversation. But first, something is missing to make this a proper conversation. And that is, of course, greetings. And, you know, Swedes are very boring when it comes to greetings. Because we don't have a big variation. I mean, the only thing we can say is hi. Or like, hello. And that's hej. And you say this in all situations. I mean, no matter how formal or informal the situation is. So, I mean, if you try to say... I mean, there is some other words for it. But some of them sounds like you're from the 19th century or like you're stuck in the 80s or something. So, I mean, hey will always work. And that is what this Benjamin replies as well. He says, hey. Because he knows that will do. So if I read through this conversation with Benjamin. Hej, hej. Hur mår du? Bra. Vad heter du? Benjamin. Var bor du? Jag bor i Göteborg. Varifrån kommer du? Från Frankrike. Vilka språk kan du? Engelska, kinesiska, spanska, arabiska, hindi, tyska och lite svenska. Varför vill du lära dig svenska? För att det är kul. Hej då!